always known the Beatles for doing extraordinary things and setting the pace for other bands to follow. Even when they all went solo, they still made waves in their career. However, one of the Fab Four that is still alive, Paul McCartney, did something remarkable for his 80th birthday. For a long time, fans could not stop talking about it. The smitten thing that he did was the fact that he honored members of the Beatles that were no longer here. What do you think happened on Paul's birthday? How do you think he celebrated his 80th birthday? A party, concert, music tour? We'll dive right into this detail. But before we do so, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exclusive content on the Beatles. Paul McCartney, being one of the major starters of the band, had contributed immensely to the growth of the Beatles. Paul McCartney, in full Sir James Paul McCartney, was born on the 18th of June, 1942. He can be tagged as the oldest Beatle alive because he celebrated his 80th birthday this year. He was born in Liverpool, England, and you could deduce that he always had a thing for birthdays over time. Paul is a British vocalist, songwriter, composer, bass player, poet, and painter, whose work with the Beatles in the 1960s helped lift popular music from its origins in the entertainment business and transform it into a creative, highly commercial art form. After the split of the band, you could still refer to him as one of the most popular solo performers of all time, in terms of both sales of his recordings and attendance at his concerts. Over the years, Paul's birthdays hasn't caused quite a stir like this one. With all his lifetime achievements and impacts that he has made, there was no better way to celebrate Paul McCartney on his 80th birthday than by singing Glory Days on stage with Bruce Springsteen or being serenaded by some 60,000 well-wishers. Watching Paul perform again after a while seemed like the highlight of his birthday celebration. He also got to do something extremely special on stage to mark his 80th birthday. It was said that he was not expecting the massive turnout he had for his birthday. He had quite a really simple life while growing up. Paul had grown up living with his father and mother before his mom was snatched by the cold hands of Dad. McCartney's father, James, worked in the Liverpool Cotton Exchange, and his mother, Mary, was a midwife, out all hours on her bicycle to deliver babies. She died from breast cancer in October 1956. This happened when McCartney was just 14 years old, and this had to have had a profound effect on his life and was the inspiration for his ballad, Let It Be, which was released in 1970. His younger brother Michael later changed his name to Mike McGear and had several hits in the satirical rock group Scaffold. Like fellow Beatles George Harrison and Ringo Starr, Richard Starkey, McCartney grew up in a traditional north of England working-class society, with an extended family frequently visiting the house at 24th Lynn Road in Allerton area of Liverpool. The house now belongs to the National Trust. His father had been the leader of Jim Mack's jazz band, and in the evenings, the family often gathered around the piano and experienced McCartney drew upon for such sing-along songs as When I'm 64 in 1967. Paul had always been around people that loved music, hence his love and interest in music. During his years as a member of the Beatles, he was usually associated with ballads and love songs. McCartney was also responsible for many of the Beatles' harder rock songs such as Lady Madonna, Back in the USSR, and Helter Skelter, which were all released in 1968. But above all, he has an extraordinary gift for melodies and sometimes tags an entirely new one onto the end of the song, as he did with Hey Jude in 1968. This facility extends to his bass playing, which is famously melodic, though often overlooked. A multi-instrumentalist, McCartney also played drums on some Beatles tracks and played all the instruments on some of his solo albums, as well as lead guitar at concerts. With all the achievements in his name, the oldest living Beatle still performed as he turned 80 recently. His birthday this year is one of the cultural milestones that bring a sharp intake of breath and make us appreciate the gift of the longevity of life. His performance that day made so many people still appreciate the gift he has to offer. For it has been more than a half century now since the Beatles broke up, a realization that hits you like the 1970s era joke about young people saying, Paul McCartney was in a band before Wings? Like several other members of the Hope I Die Before I Get Old generation, including Bob Dylan, the Rolling Stones, and former Beatles mate Ringo Starr, McCartney keeps working, producing new albums, keeps sharing his music from the stage, and doing extraordinary things with his unique sound. Apart from Paul, another 1960s icon is Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. They all learned from the Fab Four. It would interest you to know that he has still got to play at the Starlight Theater in Kansas City on his 80th birthday Monday. He has a youthful exuberance that is ageless, said Bob Spitz, a biographer. There's still some of that 21-year-old boy that shines through in all of his performances, Bob had to remark after watching the duo perform. While watching the performance, you could tell that time has taken a toll on Paul's voice. The fragility in his voice was evident while singing Blackbird on Thursday night at MetLife Stadium, the final night of a brief US tour. He struggled for the high notes in Here Today, his love letter to John Lennon, who was robbed of a long life by an assassin's bullet. Paul singing his love letter was another highlight of the night. It was said that John Lennon's last words to Paul McCartney were, "Think about me now and then, old friend." Paul truly has Lennon at heart, even after his gruesome death and murder had caused him some things in the past. Security problems caused by Lennon's murder in 1980 prevented McCartney from touring for a decade. He diverted the energy and concentrated instead on studio recording and writing, and started the 1984 film Give My Regards to Broad Street, which was poorly received. Nonetheless, critics loved his 1989 album, Flowers in the Dirt, which coincided with his return to live performance, and Flaming Pie in 1997 was even more highly praised. In 1997, McCartney was knighted by Queen Elizabeth II for music services. In the 2000s, McCartney married and divorced actress and activist Heather Mills. In 2011, he married Nancy Chevelle. That period wasn't all that blissful for Paul, but he chose to remember his friend in a really special way. Paul's birthday turned into a music concert with over 60,000 people in attendance. The skill of a sympathetic band, along with the imagination and voices in the audience, patches over the rough spots. He just came up stage and said, Yeah, right, I've got a birthday coming up," McCartney said, scanning signs held by the audience that reminded him of the milestone. "I'm not trying to ignore it, but..." Immediately, the crowd offered a spontaneous happy birthday serenade, even before Jersey guy John Bon Jovi brought out a fistful of balloons during the encore to lead them in another verse. That other Jersey guy, Springsteen, joined McCartney for the duet on Glory Days and a version of I Wanna Be Your Man. He later popped up to join the guitar duel from Abbey Road. For most artists, the appearance of such royalty would be a hard-to-top moment. Most artists can't immediately whip out Let It Be and Hey Jude to follow it. We all thought that was it, until Stereo Gum magazine pulled up with their surprise. To celebrate the birthday of a living legend, Stereo Gum magazine asked 80 artists to pick their favorite McCartney song. Songs from the pre-Beatles 1958 cut, Despite All the Danger, which McCartney performed at MetLife, to his 2016 collaboration with Rihanna and Kanye West, 4 or 5 Seconds, which he didn't, were all picked. David Crosby and Dan Auerbach of the Black Keys both chose Eleanor Rigby. Master Showman Wayne Coyne of the Flaming Lips picked Magical Mystery Tour. Steve Earle selected Every Night, while Def Leppard's Joe Elliott went against type with the gentle Little Lamb Dragonfly. Mac DeMarco picked the Ram epic The Backseat of My Car. There was, however, a pick one only rule, and so many people felt it was unfair and made side remarks about it. Stereo Gum's feature illustrated the varied entry points musicians of different generations have into a living, breathing catalog. For example, it revealed that a largely overlooked album like the 1980s McCartney 2 had a far greater impact on developing artists than its reception at the time would have foreshadowed. A day after his birthday, McCartney's team announced that it was packaging McCartney 2 with his other DIY albums, McCartney of 1970 and 2020's McCartney 3, into a box set that will go on sale in August. With the help of Peter Jackson, who reimagined the Get Back sessions for last year's television project, McCartney was able to perform a virtual duet with Lennon singing part of I've Got a Feeling from the Apple rooftop concert. McCartney also paid tribute to George Harrison, who died in 2001, with a version of Something that began with Paul on a ukulele George gave him and built to a full band version. Spitz recalled a Beatles-era film clip of Lennon telling an interviewer that he'd be flabbergasted if it lasted more than 10 years. McCartney stood next to him laughing. Lennon was right about the Beatles as a unit, but not about the music. You could tell McCartney was really happy from the smiles on his face. He left the stage with a promise when the last firework burst. He said, "See you next time. Fingers crossed, we hope to see many more amazing birthday celebrations." That's all for today's video, guys. But before we end, what do you think about Paul's 80th birthday? What was the striking part of the celebration for you? Let us know what you think in the comment section below. And if by now you haven't, ensure you subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any new updates about the Beatles.